The sky above Earth was calm before it changed forever. One morning, the people of every country woke up to the same strange shadow in the heavens. Huge objects floated above the clouds, blocking the sun in many places. At first, some thought they were meteors or satellites, but soon everyone realized the truth. They were ships, alien ships, larger than anything humans had ever built. The world held its breath. Families stood on rooftops, children pressed their faces to windows, and soldiers raised their weapons toward the sky, even though they knew those weapons were too small to matter. Governments tried to speak with the invaders, sending out signals, greetings, warnings, even desperate cries for peace. For hours there was no answer. Then at last a voice came. It was not a human voice. The sound echoed through every screen, every radio, every broadcast system. A deep mechanical tone declared, "People of Earth, do not resist. Your weapons cannot harm us. Our armor is perfect. We do not come to negotiate. We come to rule." The message repeated in every language as if the aliens had studied human speech for centuries. Fear spread like fire. Crowds filled the streets, some shouting to fight, others begging for surrender. In military command centers across the world, generals and presidents stared at the words, their hands shaking. If the alien claim was true, if their armor really was perfect, then humanity had no hope. In orbit, the alien fleet grew larger. Their warships gleamed like black mirrors shining in the sunlight. Each ship was as long as a city, armed with glowing towers and strange weapons that pulsed with power. They moved in perfect silence like predators circling prey. No human ship dared to approach. Satellites sent back images and scientists confirmed the scale of the threat. Earth was surrounded, but not all humans gave in to fear. In a hidden command bunker beneath a mountain, a group of old commanders and young officers argued. Some said Earth must surrender before millions were killed. Others slammed their fists on the table and said surrender meant slavery. One old general, his face lined with years of war, whispered words that carried through the room. They said their armor is perfect. Then we must find a way to break perfection. The younger officers laughed bitterly. Break it? Our missiles can't even scratch them. Our lasers vanish against their shields. What hope is there? The old man only stared at the screen, watching the alien warships drifting like giants. He had fought battles where the enemy seemed invincible before. He knew that no armor was ever truly perfect. Somewhere there was always a weakness. The only question was how much blood must be spilled before it was found. News broadcasts filled with chaos. In some cities, crowds rioted, demanding protection. In others, people gathered in churches, mosques, and temples, praying for a miracle. Children cried at the sight of alien shadows crossing the sun. Rumors spread that the aliens had already destroyed colonies on Mars, wiping out the bases in minutes. Humanity was trapped on Earth with nowhere to run. The alien voice returned that night. It was colder, harsher. You will surrender within 3 cycles of your sun. If you resist, your world will burn. Nothing can pierce our armor. Nothing can stop us. The message ended and silence followed. The silence was worse than the words. In orbit, one alien ship moved closer. It descended through the atmosphere, its hull glowing as it pushed aside air and clouds. Over the ocean it stopped, hanging low above the waves. Fighter jets were scrambled, dozens of them streaking through the sky with roaring engines. The world watched on live television as the jets fired their missiles. Bright trails of smoke cut across the sky. Explosions lit up the alien hull. For a heartbeat, hope rose. But when the fire cleared, the alien ship was untouched. Its armor gleamed as though nothing had happened. The jets circled helplessly, their weapons spent. The alien ship unleashed a single beam of light. An entire squadron vanished in fire. The sea boiled where the wreckage fell. People on Earth screamed and wept. The proof was before their eyes. The aliens were telling the truth. Their armor was unbreakable. Humanity's strongest weapons were useless. For the first time in centuries, the human race faced an enemy it could not understand. An enemy beyond reason. And yet, in that hidden bunker, the old general's eyes narrowed. He did not see only despair. He saw opportunity. He leaned close to his officers and spoke quietly, his voice steady even as the world trembled. We cannot match their technology, but maybe we do not need to. We must remember what we once used before lasers, before missiles, before we trusted computers to fight for us. Sometimes the old ways are the most dangerous. Sometimes the simplest weapons break the strongest shields. The officers exchanged doubtful glances. What could the old man mean? Against such power, what old ways could matter? No one dared to ask. Outside, alien warships covered the stars, a dark cage around Earth. The clock toward surrender ticked closer. Fear ruled the hearts of billions. But in one quiet corner of the world, a spark of defiance flickered. The aliens believed their armor was perfect. The humans had not yet begun to prove them wrong. The world had gone silent after the first attack. The ocean still carried the smoke of the fallen jets, and the sky was filled with the shadows of alien ships that floated like silent mountains. Every city was tense, every family afraid. It felt as if the entire planet was holding its breath, waiting for death. The aliens had shown their strength, and now Earth's leaders sat in cold rooms trying to decide what to do. Some begged for surrender. Others spoke of fighting until the last human was gone. But fear was stronger than courage, and most believed resistance was hopeless. The alien voice returned once more, steady and cruel. "We are patient humans. You have 3 cycles of your sun to surrender. Do not waste our time. Your missiles burn like sparks against our armor. Your lasers fade like shadows. Nothing you have can harm us." People wept when they heard the words. Farmers in their fields dropped their tools, and soldiers in their barracks bowed their heads. But not everyone was ready to give up. Somewhere in the cold depths of space, a single human warship drifted in silence. It was old, built long before humans had colonies on Mars, long before they thought they would ever meet another intelligent race. Its weapons were outdated, its systems half-broken, but its crew had chosen to stay in orbit while the alien fleet spread across the skies. Captain Rourke stood at the bridge of this ship, his hands clasped behind his back. He was not young anymore, and his uniform was worn, but his eyes still burned. Around him, his crew waited. Some looked tired, some terrified, but all of them were loyal. They had seen the alien armor shrug off every missile on Earth, yet they were still here, still waiting. Rourke's voice was calm when he finally spoke. "We will not use missiles. We will not use lasers. We will use what they never expected us to bring." He turned toward the weapons officer, a young woman with nervous hands. "Prepare the cannon." The word seemed almost strange on her tongue. "The cannon, sir?" "Yes," he said, his voice low and certain. "The one buried in our hull. The one everyone forgot about." The crew stirred. The cannon was a relic, a weapon that hurled solid steel shells with raw force instead of light or energy. It had not been fired in decades. Modern navies laughed at such weapons, calling them slow, heavy, and useless in space. But the captain remembered something the aliens had said. "Nothing can pierce our armor." That was a claim of perfection. And perfection always had a weakness. Far above Earth, one alien scout ship broke from formation. It was smaller than the others, but still massive compared to the human vessel. Its armor gleamed like black glass, reflecting the sun. It moved closer, as though curious to see the last human warship that dared remain in orbit. Over the comms, the alien voice spoke again, this time mocking. "You challenge us with a relic? You believe your rusting shell can harm us?" The human crew said nothing. Captain Rourke gave a single order. "Fire!" The cannon roared. For a moment, the old warship shook as if it would tear apart. A solid projectile, nothing more than hardened steel and human engineering, ripped into the void. It traveled faster than sound, faster than thought. A tiny spear of metal hurled with all the fury of Earth behind it. The alien ship did not move. Why should it? Its armor had faced missiles, plasma, beams of pure light. Nothing had touched it. Nothing had mattered. But this was different. The steel shell struck the alien hull with impossible force. There was no light, no beam, no energy, only raw mass meeting matter. The soundless collision cracked through the alien armor like a hammer against glass. For the first time since their arrival, alien metal bent. The black mirror surface shattered, and a scar ripped across the side of the ship. The alien voice faltered. "Impossible. This cannot be." Cheers exploded through the human ship. For the first time, the crew felt hope, real hope. One cannon shot had done what missiles could not. One simple weapon had broken the mask of perfection, but the battle was not over. The alien scout reeled in space, its weapons flashing with rage. A beam of energy tore past the human ship, shaking it like a toy in a storm. The hull groaned, lights flickered, alarms screamed. Another shot and they would be gone. Captain Rourke gripped the edge of his chair. "Reload, faster." The crew moved with desperate speed. The cannon boomed again. Another shell screamed into the void and struck the alien ship. This time the armor cracked wider, splitting open. Fire spilled into space as part of the alien hull burst apart. The alien voice screamed in anger and disbelief before it cut off completely. Moments later, the scout ship exploded, a burst of flame and shattered debris scattering across the stars. The silence after was louder than any explosion. On Earth, millions had been watching. Every screen, every broadcast carried the image of the battle. They had seen the cannon fire. They had seen the alien armor break. They had seen the impossible become real. People fell to their knees, not in fear, but in joy. Soldiers shouted, children cheered, and even leaders who had spoken of surrender felt their hearts change. For the first time, humanity knew the truth. The aliens were not gods. Their armor was not perfect. Captain Rourke lowered his head, his voice quiet but firm. Spread the word. Tell every base, every ship, every nation. Cannons work. Build them, fire them, never stop. We have a chance. The message spread like lightning. Engineers dusted off old blueprints. Factories roared to life, and commanders who had nearly given up began to plan again. The aliens had made one mistake. They had underestimated the stubbornness of humankind. And now, as the stars burned with wreckage, a new chapter of war was beginning. The first strike had been made, and the universe would never forget it. The wreckage of the alien scout still burned in orbit, pieces of shattered armor drifting like black ice across the stars. For the first time since the invasion began, the world had seen an alien ship destroyed. People on Earth celebrated through the night, but under the cheering there was still fear. One victory did not win a war. The alien fleet was vast, their weapons brutal, and their promise of conquest had not changed. The clock toward surrender still ticked. Humanity had only bought itself time. In hidden bunkers, commanders and scientists argued over what had just happened. Every detail of the battle was played again and again on giant screens. The cannon shell ripping through alien armor, the explosion, the silence after. Some scientists insisted it was luck, that the shot had struck a weak point. Others shouted it was proof the aliens were not invincible. The debates grew heated until an older voice silenced the room. No armor is perfect, said Dr. Elias Grant, a weapons engineer with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He pointed at the cracked hull of the alien scout on the recording. Their shields are built to block energy. Lasers, plasma, radiation, things advanced civilizations use. But they never expected something so simple. He let the word hang in the air. Kinetic force. Pure mass. The room was silent. Someone whispered, "Cannons." Grant nodded. Cannons, orders spread across the world. Hidden factories that once built spaceships for exploration were now turned into forges of war. Engineers dusted off designs from centuries ago, blueprints from forgotten wars. Railguns, mass drivers, giant artillery pieces that hurled projectiles faster than any missile. They were old ideas, but the enemy's arrogance had given them new life. In the deserts of Earth, massive shipyards lit up the night as humans worked day and night. Old warships, once retired and rusting, were dragged out of dry docks. Their laser turrets were stripped away, replaced with massive cannons that stretched the length of their hulls. Factories pounded steel into shells as large as trucks. Every shot was heavy, expensive, and difficult to make, but each one carried the promise of hope. Yet not everyone believed. In the halls of government, leaders argued. Some said it was foolish to rely on such crude weapons. Others feared the aliens would strike harder before the cannons were ready. A few still whispered about surrender. But the people had seen the broadcast of the battle. They had seen the alien armor break. And the people demanded war. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the alien fleet watched. Their commanders studied the loss of the scout ship with cold fury. They did not understand. Their weapons had crushed every human attack. Their armor had resisted every strike. How could a primitive weapon destroy them? The aliens began to test new tactics, sending patrols closer to Earth, firing beams at random targets, showing their power again and again. But beneath their arrogance, a seed of doubt had been planted. On a hidden moon base, Captain Rourke stood with his crew as new cannons were installed on their ship. The engineers worked fast, welding steel, rewiring systems, making old designs fit on modern hulls. The ship creaked and groaned under the changes, but it was becoming something new, something dangerous. Rourke ran his hand along the cold barrel of the cannon. It was ugly, heavy, and ancient, yet it carried the weight of human defiance. His second officer, a woman named Alvarez, spoke quietly. "Sir, even with these cannons, we can't match their numbers." "They have hundreds of ships, we have a handful." Rourke's eyes were hard. "We don't need to match their numbers. We just need to show them that humans don't break." If we bleed them, if we make them fear, we can win. The crew nodded, though fear lingered in their eyes. They knew the battles ahead would be unlike anything Earth had ever faced. In one of the secret bunkers on Earth, Dr. Grant continued his work. He studied fragments of alien wreckage retrieved from orbit. The black shards of armor were strange, layered with energy-absorbing material. But when he pressed a steel hammer against them, the cracks widened. His heart raced. "It's true," he whispered. "They are strong against light, weak against force. They built walls for the future, but forgot the past." He turned to his team. "We will make new weapons. Railguns so large they shake the earth when they fire. Shells so heavy they can shatter a mountain. If the aliens think perfection protects them, we will bury them under steel." The work spread like fire. Miners dug deep for metals. Factories melted iron, and welders built cannons the size of towers. Warships rose from the oceans, their decks lined with guns. Space stations bristled with rail launchers. Humanity, once divided, was now united under one purpose: survival through defiance. But the aliens were not idle. From their massive flagship, hidden in the darkness of space, their supreme commander watched. He gave an order that echoed through their fleet. Crush them. Show them their toys mean nothing. Burn their cities until their cannons are ash. The war was no longer a threat. It had begun. On Earth, as night fell, people looked to the stars. They could see alien warships glimmering like dark stars in the heavens. But this time, they did not feel only fear. Somewhere above, human cannons were being loaded, aimed, and prepared. Somewhere above, men and women stood ready to fire again. The aliens had claimed their armor was perfect. Soon they would learn perfection was nothing against human fury. The stars above Earth were no longer silent. Human shipyards glowed with fire. Factories roared without rest, and in orbit old warships had been reborn. Their sleek laser turrets were gone, replaced by heavy cannons that stretched like steel spears across their hulls. The first human fleet armed with these weapons waited in the shadow of the moon, silent predators hiding in the dark. But humanity's plan was still untested. Cannons had destroyed one alien scout, yes, but some argued it was luck, a single miracle shot. If humanity wanted to prove its survival, it needed more than luck. It needed proof that cannons could break the pride of the alien fleet again. That proof would come soon. One alien patrol ship broke formation. Sleek and black, it drifted closer to Earth's orbit, scanning the surface with beams of light. Its armor gleamed, scarred faintly from earlier battles but still powerful. The alien commander aboard was confident. Humans were desperate creatures. They might bite, they might scratch, but they could not win. Deep in the shadow of the moon, Captain Rourke watched his screens. His ship, the Resolute, was one of the first to be armed with twin rail cannons. Around him floated two smaller escorts, each carrying similar weapons. It wasn't much, but it was enough to test the theory. Rourke's crew was tense. Some stared at their monitors, others gripped controls until their knuckles turned white. The weapons officer's voice trembled. "Target in range, Captain. Should we wait for backup?" Rourke shook his head. His voice was steady, almost calm. "No, if we wait, they'll see us. This is our chance to prove the world is not lost. Load the cannons." The hum of the ship deepened as shells the size of cars slid into place. The crew could feel the vibration through the deck. Old technology, simple and brutal, but now the most dangerous weapons humanity had. The alien patrol ship detected something then. Its sensors flared and its commander snarled. A human warship hiding in the shadows, daring to face it alone. A transmission burst across the void. "Foolish humans. You cannot harm us. Your toys are useless. Surrender and we may spare your world." No reply came from the Resolute, only silence. Then with the pull of a trigger, the silence ended. The first cannon fired. The railgun spat steel into the dark. The projectile tore through space faster than thought. It slammed into the alien ship's armor, and once again the black mirror cracked. A line of sparks scattered across its hull like lightning across glass. The alien ship shuddered. Gasps filled the Resolute. Hope lit in every eye. Rourke gave no time for celebration. Second shot. "Fire again!" The second cannon roared, and another projectile smashed into the alien hull. This time, plates of armor buckled outward, tearing loose into space. For the first time, the patrol ship bled, streams of glowing gas venting from its wounds. The alien commander's voice erupted in fury. "Impossible! Primitive weapons cannot..." The message cut off as another round slammed into the patrol ship, silencing the broadcast with fire. The patrol ship returned fire. Beams of searing light streaked across the void, smashing into one of the human escorts. The smaller ship groaned, its hull burning, alarm screaming. In seconds it was crippled, drifting powerless. The crew aboard shouted for help, their signals frantic. Rourke's heart clenched, but his face showed only steel. "Keep firing. Don't stop until it's ash." The cannons boomed again and again. Every shot shook the Resolute, every recoil rattled bones, but every shell tore deeper into alien metal. At last, with one final round, the patrol ship cracked open. Its reactor burst, and the ship exploded in a storm of fire and fragments that lit the space above Earth like a new sun. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The crew stared at the burning wreckage. Then the silence broke into cheers. They had done it, not once, not by luck, but twice. Alien armor could be broken and broken again. Humanity had proof, but the victory came at a price. The escort ship floated helpless, its crew trapped inside. Rescue shuttles were launched, dragging the survivors back, but many were lost. The crew of the Resolute watched in silence as bodies drifted into the void. War was no longer a theory. It was real, and it was cruel. On Earth, the broadcast spread like wildfire. Billions saw the alien patrol destroyed. The people cheered, their fear turning into defiance. Factories thundered louder, building more cannons, more shells, more ships. The governments that had spoken of surrender were silenced by the roar of the crowd. Humanity had tasted victory, and now it hungered for more. But far away, aboard the alien flagship, the Supreme Commander watched with cold eyes. The patrol ship's destruction played on his screens. His claws dug into the arm of his throne. He hissed, his voice echoing through the alien fleet. "These humans are pests, primitive, stubborn pests. They believe they have found strength. Very well, let us crush their spirit. No more warnings. Prepare the fleet." The alien warships shifted in the dark, thousands of lights flickering as they prepared for war. Back aboard the Resolute, Captain Rourke stood in the quiet after the battle. His crew tended to their wounded, cleaned the cannon barrels, and reloaded shells. Alvarez approached him, her face pale but steady. "We proved it, sir." "Cannons work." Rourke nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars where alien wreckage drifted. His voice was calm but heavy. "Yes, but they won't make the same mistake twice. Next time they'll come with everything." The crew fell silent. Outside, the stars glimmered cold and distant. Somewhere among them, the alien fleet was moving. The test was over. The real war was about to begin. Factories screamed with life. Sparks flew from steel as men and women hammered shells the size of cars. Rail lines carried crates of ammunition across countries, guarded by soldiers who knew every bullet could decide the fate of Earth. The night skies above the shipyards glowed red as new warships rose from oceans, deserts, and mountains. The world had changed in a matter of days. Humanity, once fractured by politics and fear, was united by one truth. Cannons worked. Across every nation, people no longer whispered of surrender. They whispered of resistance. Farmers donated their metal tools to be melted down for ammunition. Miners dug day and night, hauling ore from the earth with bleeding hands. Children painted messages on shells. For Earth, for freedom, for the fallen. The aliens had promised perfection, but their broken ships drifted above as proof that perfection was a lie. In hidden bases, scientists argued about how to improve the old designs. Dr. Elias Grant stood over a table of blueprints, his fingers smudged with grease and graphite. "It's not enough to build more cannons," he said, his voice sharp. "We need bigger ones. Railguns capable of firing slugs heavier than a tank. If we mount them on our largest ships, even their flagships won't survive." Younger engineers hesitated. "But the power required?" "The recoil. It could tear our ships apart." Grant's eyes burned with stubborn fire. "Then we build ships that won't break. Humanity is not fighting for pride, we are fighting for existence. Push the limits. Tear apart the old rules. If a ship must be a cannon with engines strapped to it, then that is what we'll build." And so Earth's forges gave birth to monsters. Warships with barrels stretching across their decks. Massive orbital platforms turned into gun batteries. Even the moon itself was reshaped, its surface dug into trenches where hidden cannons waited like wolves in the shadows. But hope was a dangerous thing. For every celebration on Earth, the alien fleet responded with fury. They no longer sent scouts or warnings. They sent fire. Entire cities were struck from orbit. Beams of white light rained down, cutting through skyscrapers like paper. Oceans boiled where alien blasts struck. Millions fled underground, hiding in bunkers and caves while the sky burned. Still, humanity did not surrender. Each attack only hardened their resolve. For every city lost, another cannon was built. For every life taken, 10 more soldiers volunteered. Across radios and screens, voices shouted the same words: "We will not break." In orbit, the first true human fleet assembled. Dozens of warships, each armed with rail cannons, hovered like silent giants. Their crews were not just soldiers, but volunteers: miners, farmers, mechanics, anyone willing to fight. Some had never left Earth before, yet now they wore uniforms and stood ready to die among the stars. Captain Rourke's Resolute floated at the center of the fleet. Its scars from the test battle had been repaired, and its cannons had been reinforced with thicker barrels. Rourke stood on the bridge, looking at the ships surrounding him. His second officer, Alvarez, joined him with a faint smile. "Not long ago we were alone," she said. "Now look, a fleet." Rourke's face was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of every soul aboard. "It's a beginning. But remember, the aliens will come in force. They've tasted loss. They will come to crush us." As if his words were prophecy, alarms blared. Across the fleet's sensors, massive shapes appeared on the edge of the system. Alien warships, dozens, then hundreds, sliding out of the dark like a tide of steel and fire. The Supreme Commander had kept his word. The real invasion was coming. The alien broadcast crackled across human channels, filled with venom. "You are insects who dream of strength. We will burn your world until nothing remains. No cannon can save you." On Earth, billions heard the threat. Some trembled, but most clenched their fists. In the streets, people raised banners. In the bunkers, children whispered prayers. And in orbit, the human fleet tightened formation. The order came from Earth's command center. A voice rang through every ship, steady and unyielding. "This is not the time for fear. This is the time to show them who we are. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity fights," the fleet roared back in unison. Across every comm, every frequency, voices shouted the same word: "Fight!" Engines ignited. Cannons loaded. The air on the bridges was thick with the scent of oil and sweat. Men and women sat at their stations with shaking hands, but their eyes were steady. They knew the odds. They knew the price. And still, they were ready. Captain Rourke looked out at the stars, where alien lights burned like a storm on the horizon. He raised his hand, calm and certain. "All ships prepare for engagement. Remember this, their armor is not perfect. Their hearts are not perfect. They bleed, and we will make them bleed again." In the silence before battle, the crews of every ship held their breath. The first great war of humans and aliens was about to begin. The resistance had risen. The test was over. The fire was coming, and humanity was ready to meet it. The silence of space broke with fire. The alien fleet advanced, hundreds of ships moving as one, their black hulls glimmering like blades under the sun. They filled the void above Earth, each vessel armed with weapons that had already burned cities and boiled oceans. To billions watching below, it seemed like the end of the world. But this time, humanity was not unarmed. From the shadow of the moon, Earth's first true fleet drifted forward. Warships bristling with rail cannons and kinetic guns cut through the dark, their engines glowing faintly. Some were old ships reforged for battle, others brand new monsters built in frantic weeks of labor. They were outnumbered, yes, outgunned perhaps, but their weapons had one thing the aliens did not expect: the power to wound. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Rourke stood tall, his eyes fixed on the storm ahead. The crew waited, tense and silent. Alvarez broke the quiet, her voice low. "There are so many of them, sir." Rourke didn't flinch. "Then we'll make every shot count. Load all batteries. Aim for their pride." The fleet spread into formation. Cannons locked, targeting systems hummed, shells the size of buses slid into place. Across the comms, Earth's commanders gave the order. "All ships, fire!" The dark sky lit up. Dozens of rail cannons roared at once, their slugs screaming through the void. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds, slamming into alien hulls with brutal force. The first wave of shots tore open 3 enemy ships, their armor shattering like glass, their reactors blooming into fire. The sight electrified the humans watching from Earth, proof that they were not helpless, proof that the aliens could bleed. But the aliens were not slow to answer. Their ships unleashed beams of searing white light, lancing across space like the anger of gods. Entire human escorts vanished in bursts of fire. One railgun platform shattered in silence, its fragments scattering into orbit like ashes. The first line of Earth's fleet was torn apart, but the survivors did not waver. Reload. Faster, Rourke barked. His crew moved with desperate speed. The Resolute's cannons thundered again, smashing into another alien cruiser and breaking it in half. Alvarez whispered through clenched teeth, "They're not invincible. Not anymore." The battle raged across orbit. Human warships swarmed around their heavier cannons, firing and retreating, striking and vanishing. Every shot was precious, every shell a weapon of hope. Alien vessels crumbled one by one, but for every ship destroyed, 5 more pressed forward. The void was filled with wreckage, human and alien alike, burning silently against the stars. On Earth, people gathered in bunkers and open fields, staring at the skies. Through screens and radios, they heard the updates. Enemy cruiser destroyed. Cheers erupted. Then, human ship lost. Silence and tears followed. The entire planet fought through its people, feeling every victory, mourning every loss. The aliens, furious, pushed harder. Their flagship, a massive vessel larger than any human city, moved to the front lines. Its hull was layered with thick armor glowing with energy shields. Every shot from its weapons wiped out dozens of human fighters. Fear gripped the fleet. Rourke saw it and clenched his fist. "Bring us closer. Aim everything at that monster." The Resolute surged forward, followed by 2 remaining escorts. Their cannons fired again and again, slugs slamming into the flagship's armor. Sparks flew, dents appeared, but the giant ship did not fall. Its shields flared bright, absorbing most of the impact. Inside the alien vessel, their commander watched the humans fight with an expression close to disbelief. "They are insects," he growled, "but they bite harder than we imagined." He slammed a clawed hand against his throne. "Crush them." No survivors. Alien reinforcements broke through the human line. Beams carved into Earth's fleet, splitting hulls and tearing ships apart. One human battleship exploded in silence, the shockwave tossing smaller ships into chaos. Alarms shrieked on the Resolute as another blast skimmed its side, tearing open decks. Still, the humans did not break. The fleet circled, firing relentlessly, pounding at alien armor until cracks spread wider. A massive alien cruiser faltered, its shields failing, and then collapsed into fire. The humans cheered, even as 2 more of their own ships vanished. On Earth, Dr. Grant stood in the command bunker, watching the chaos unfold on his monitors. His voice shook with both fear and pride. "They're holding. By God, they're holding." Back in orbit, the battle reached its peak. Human shells slammed into the flagship one after another. At last, a rail slug punched through its outer armor, leaving a crater that vented fire into space. The alien commander roared in rage, ordering all ships to focus on the Resolute. Dozens of beams converged on Rourke's ship. The hull groaned, systems failed, alarms screamed. The crew clung to their stations, knowing one more strike would end them. Alvarez turned to Rourke, her voice quiet but steady. "Even if we fall, Captain, we showed them." Rourke's eyes burned with defiance. "We're not done yet." The Resolute fired again. Its cannons roared, hurling one last shell into the heart of the alien flagship. The slug pierced deep, tearing through layer after layer until finally, an explosion lit the sky. The alien giant staggered, its shields collapsing, its armor breaking apart. The flagship burned, and the alien fleet wavered for the first time. Humanity had not won, not yet. Ships still burned, losses were heavy, and the enemy was far from defeated. But for the first time, the aliens hesitated. For the first time, they feared. And Earth knew the war was far from over. But humanity had survived the great storm. The great war in orbit had begun, and the universe would never be the same. The wreckage of the alien flagship drifted like a burning moon across the stars. Its shattered hull glowed with fire, spilling fragments into Earth's orbit. For the first time in history, the invaders had been forced to retreat, leaving behind silence and smoke. The people of Earth cheered, crying with joy, but the commanders of the human fleet did not. They knew the truth. This victory was only a pause. The war was far from over. In the shadow of the moon, survivors gathered. The Resolute floated scarred and battered, its hull scorched, its decks torn open. Half its crew was gone, but Captain Rourke still stood on the bridge. His hands trembled from exhaustion, yet his eyes burned brighter than ever. Alvarez leaned against a console, her uniform streaked with blood and smoke. "We won, sir," she whispered, though her voice carried little joy. Rourke nodded slowly. Yes, but they'll return, stronger. They won't make the same mistakes again. He was right. Far beyond the orbit of Mars, hidden in the cold of deep space, the alien empire prepared its answer. Their supreme commander stood in the center of a vast chamber, his armored body towering over his officers. Around him, holograms displayed the burning wreckage of their fallen fleet. His voice rumbled like thunder. The humans think themselves clever. They believe their toys can wound us, then let them face perfection once more. From the dark, their true flagship emerged, a vessel larger than a mountain, longer than a continent. It was called the Eternal Blade, a ship so vast it carried fleets within its hangars. Its armor was thicker, layered with new shields. Its weapons could crack moons and burn worlds. The aliens had held it back as their final weapon, certain they would never need it. Now it was unleashed. When Earth's telescopes caught sight of the Eternal Blade entering the system, the news spread like wildfire. Fear returned. People saw its size and whispered that humanity had only delayed the inevitable. Some governments even whispered of surrender again, desperate to save what was left of their cities. In the bunkers, Dr. Elias Grant slammed his fists onto the table. Surrender now means extinction. That ship may be strong, but it is not invincible. No armor is. His eyes burned as he scribbled designs across a hollow pad. We need one weapon, one shot. A cannon bigger than anything we've built, a round so massive it could tear the heart out of a starship. The room fell silent. One officer muttered, "That would require power no ship can carry." Grant looked up, grim but determined. "Then we don't use power from the ship. We build the cannon into the ship. One vessel, one barrel. We fire it once and that shot will decide our future." The plan was madness. But madness was all humanity had left. Weeks of chaos followed. On Earth's surface, entire industries bent to the task. Mountains were carved for steel, cities repurposed to build a single weapon. They called it the Titan Cannon, a barrel stretching kilometers loaded with a slug heavier than any weapon humanity had ever forged. Engineers wept at the impossible task, yet they built it. Soldiers volunteered by the thousands to crew the ship, even knowing it might never return. The Resolute was too damaged to carry the weapon, so a new ship was chosen, the Vanguard, an experimental dreadnought, stripped of every system except engines, armor, and the Titan cannon. It was not a warship. It was a spear, built to pierce the heart of the Eternal Blade. Captain Rourke was asked to lead the mission. He stood in silence when the offer came, staring at the stars through a shattered window. At last he spoke. "I'll do it, but I won't ask my crew to follow me. This mission is death." Alvarez stepped forward, her voice steady. "Then you don't need to ask, sir. We've followed you this far. We'll follow you to the end." The crew of the Resolute, battered survivors of countless battles, transferred to the Vanguard. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow from loss, but none refused. They knew what awaited them. They knew this was the last gamble. When the Eternal Blade entered Earth's orbit, the sky darkened. Its shadow stretched across continents. Alien voices thundered once more. "This world is ours. Your resistance ends today. You cannot harm us." But humanity was ready. The Vanguard ignited its engines, rising from the shadow of the moon. Alone, it moved toward the alien giant. On Earth, billions watched in silence, their hearts beating as one. This was not just a ship. It was every human's defiance made flesh. Inside the bridge, Rourke stood tall, his hands resting on the Titan cannon's controls. Alvarez whispered at his side, "If this doesn't work..." "It will," Rourke said, his voice steady. "It has to." The Eternal Blade opened fire. Beams of light streaked across space, tearing at the Vanguard's armor. Decks crumbled, systems failed, screams filled the comms. Still, the ship pressed on. Every hit brought it closer. Every wound made the crew fiercer. At last, the Titan cannon locked on. The barrel hummed with power, its coils glowing white-hot. The ship itself shook as energy surged through it. The crew held their breath. Rourke's voice rang through the bridge, calm and final. "For Earth, fire!" The Titan cannon roared. The slug launched into the void, a mountain of steel hurled faster than thought. It crossed the distance in seconds, smashing into the Eternal Blade. The impact was cataclysmic. Alien armor shattered, shields collapsed, and the giant ship screamed as its heart split open. Fire erupted across its hull, tearing through its decks. For a moment, silence followed. Then the impossible happened. The Eternal Blade cracked apart. exploding in a blinding storm of fire and debris. The greatest weapon of the alien empire was gone. On Earth, people erupted in cheers, their voices shaking the heavens. Humanity had struck down the god of their enemies. But aboard the Vanguard, alarms screamed. The Titan cannon had drained everything. The ship was crippled, its hull collapsing, its engines gone. The crew knew they would not return. Alvarez looked at Rourke, her eyes shining with both sorrow and pride. "We did it," Rourke nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "They'll remember." As the Vanguard burned in silence, Earth lived on. Humanity had turned the tide. The war was not over, but it would never be the same. The fire of the eternal blade still burned across the heavens. Its shattered carcass drifted in orbit like a broken crown, its wreckage scattering into the endless dark. Humanity had struck down the greatest weapon of the alien empire, but the price was carved in blood. The Vanguard, the ship that carried the Titan cannon, had vanished with it. Captain Rourke and his crew were gone, martyrs to a victory that shook the stars. On Earth, people wept and cheered in equal measure. They raised their hands to the sky, shouting the name of the fallen ship, their voices carrying across cities and bunkers alike. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity believed, not just in survival but in triumph. The aliens were not gods. They were not perfect, and now they were afraid, but fear made enemies dangerous. From the depths of space, the alien fleet reeled in shock. Their commanders snarled in rage, their pride shattered. The humans had destroyed what should have been unbreakable. For the alien empire, there was no choice left. They gathered the full force of their armada. Hundreds of ships surged toward Earth, determined to drown the planet in fire and end humanity before their defiance spread to other stars. Earth's defenders had little time. The fleet above the moon was battered and thin, many ships gone, ammunition scarce. Railguns were scarred, cannons overheated, crews exhausted. Dr. Elias Grant, standing in the command bunker on Earth, stared at the incoming swarm on his screens. His voice trembled as he spoke to the generals. "This is it. One last stand. If we fall here, humanity falls with us." The generals exchanged grim nods. "Then we make our stand in orbit. Every gun, every shell, every ship we have left. We hold nothing back." Across Earth, sirens wailed. Civilians dug deeper into shelters. Factories pushed out their final shells, and soldiers marched into ships, knowing many would not return. The world had become one army, one will, one cry of defiance. The human fleet rose again. Burned and battered ships limped back into formation. Orbital platforms aimed their cannons toward the void. Even Earth's surface bristled with weapons. Hidden batteries in mountains and deserts waiting to fire into the sky. And then, the storm arrived. The alien armada descended like a black tide, filling the void with their ships. Their beams lit space in blinding fury, cutting through the human lines. A dozen warships were erased in moments, their crews gone before they could fire a single shot. The Earth shook as orbital stations exploded one after another, but humanity answered. Railguns thundered, shells streaking into the swarm. Alien cruisers cracked apart, their glowing wreckage falling into Earth's atmosphere like meteors. Platforms hidden on the moon fired from the shadows, tearing holes in enemy formations. Every cannon roared with fury, every shot a message. We will not die quietly. The battle became chaos. Ships clashed in swarms, beams and shells crisscrossing the dark. Human vessels rammed alien cruisers, detonating themselves in blinding sacrifice. Alien fighters cut through lines only to be swarmed by desperate human pilots. The sky above Earth burned with fire, a storm of destruction brighter than any sunrise. On the surface, civilians watched streaks of light rip across the heavens. Some were alien wreckage, others were human ships falling in flames. Families prayed, soldiers saluted the sky, and children whispered names of the heroes already gone. Amid the storm, Alvarez, now commanding the Resolute after Rourke's sacrifice, stood on its bridge. Her uniform was torn, her face bloodied, but her voice was steady. "Target the largest ships. Make every shot count. If we fall standing." The Resolute fired its last shells, piercing another alien cruiser. The crew cheered even as enemy fire ripped across their hull, tearing decks apart. Alvarez gritted her teeth, refusing to yield. "Keep firing!" And then the tide shifted. The alien fleet, once confident, now faltered. Too many of their ships had fallen. Their so-called perfection had been shattered again and again. Their commanders barked orders, but hesitation spread like rot. Humanity had bled them dry, and though Earth's fleet was crumbling, the aliens had paid in mountains of steel and fire. Dr. Grant's voice echoed through every comm. His words carried to every ship, every soldier, every survivor. Listen to me. They told us their armor was perfect. They told us we were weak. But look at the sky, see their ships burn. See their fleet broken. Humanity stands because we never stop fighting. Today we do not survive. Today we win. The last shells fired. The last cannons roared. The alien fleet broke. One by one their ships turned, engines blazing, retreating into the dark. The invaders had come to conquer, but now they fled in ruin, their pride shattered, their fleets in ashes. The war was not without cost. Half of Earth's fleet was gone. Millions lay dead. Cities still smoldered from the first strikes. The Vanguard and its crew remained only in memory, and yet humanity had endured. In the silence after battle, Earth looked to the sky. The stars were no longer symbols of fear. They were promises of the future. Humanity had faced a race that claimed perfection and torn that lie apart with iron and will. On the bridge of the scarred Resolute, Alvarez stood with the surviving crew. Her voice was quiet, yet it carried across the silence. They said their armor was perfect. They said we could not harm them. But we proved them wrong, and we always will. The crew nodded, their eyes fixed on the stars. Humanity was wounded but unbroken, and as the alien fleet vanished into the dark, one truth echoed across the earth. Perfection had fallen. Humanity had risen, and the universe would never forget.